last week we reported on the House version of the Farm Bill. Now, the Farm Bill had a lot of stuff in it, and the thing that held it up the most were the $20 billion in SNAP cuts. Now, it's not only that, but there was a bunch of amendments thrown on there by conservative lawmakers. One of them would have made it, and get this is hilarious, one of them would have made having a car worth more than $5,000 a disqualifier for being on the SNAP program. So you can't have a reliable car.
Right,
you have to be super desperate in order to get SNAP. Super, like, horribly, in poverty, without a car desperate in order to get SNAP, which is crazy.
Which does nothing to prevent someone from falling into abject poverty. These are supposed to be safety nets for a reason, to prevent abject, extreme poverty from occurring in the first place.
Right. And so, an amendment also by Steve Sutherland, and he's a representative from Florida. He wanted to set up work requirements, kind of like welfare to work, in order to get SNAP benefits. Another amendment tacked onto it would have forced drug testing for people on SNAP. Oh, you're hungry? Pee in a cup.
As if what? As if they test positive that no, you can't eat. Fuck you.
Yeah. Seriously. So the vote on Thursday went down in the House. It went down in flames, 195 to 234, and that's with 62 Republicans voting against it. 23 Democrats actually voted for it, and that's like, with all of these amendments on there, the Democrats voted for it. Amazing, right? And
Republicans, most of them voted it down because it didn't cut food stamps enough.
That's true. So 58 of those 62 Republicans voted for the Sutherland amendments, the most restrictive ones. So you kind of see the direction and where the Republicans were going, like you had just said. Man. So this went down, and this bill was backed by Speaker Boehner, and now it's looking pretty embarrassing for him. He couldn't control the Tea Party Caucus, which is pretty bad. And I'm not really surprised he couldn't control the caucus. We got people on there like Louis Gohmert, that he says things like, quote, "From the amount of obesity in this country, by people we're told to From the amount of obesity in this country, by people we're told do not have enough to eat, it does seem like we can have a debate about this issue without allegations about wanting to slap down or starve children." You know what he's saying there? You guys are so damn fat. I'm doing you a favor. You don't need to eat so much, so we're going to cut your SNAP. Because apparently you're all too fat, and we're going to help you out. Get on a forced diet.
Isn't he fat?
Gohmert? No. Gohmert's not fat. He's just crazy.
Right. Plenty of Republicans are fat, though. But that's beside the point.
All right.
This guy's obviously an idiot.
Gohmert continues. He says he's talked to broken-hearted constituents that see people buy extravagant foods like king crab legs with food stamps. Bullshit. Here's what. You can get a 20-pound box of king crab legs. It costs over $500.
Oh my God.
$500 for a 20-pound box. A 4-pound box is nearly $200. The average monthly amount for a person on the food stamp program is $133 a month.
So it's literally impossible.
So, yeah. So you guys think that's bullshit, right? I do not think he talked to any broken-hearted constituent that said something like that. So all in all, this is the second time the House failed to pass Farm Bill, and another example of how Speaker Boehner has pretty much lost control of this Congress, of this Tea Party craziness that's going on in in the Senate, in the House. So what do you guys think?
Well, obviously, he doesn't understand the basics of nutrition and the fact that most poor people are, in fact, suffering from some sort of overweight or obese problem because they're not eating the right food, not because they're eating too much food. It's because they have often access only to low nutritional, highly calorically dense crap food that's either fried or processed. There are food deserts in small towns that don't have a grocery store, that only have a convenience store, people who don't have cars, that's the only thing they have to rely on. And even if you live in a small rural town but it has a grocery store, that grocery store is not necessarily adequately stocked. You're only getting like 20, 30, 40, 50, maybe $100 in food stamps a month, depending on who you are.
Or 16.
You can only afford, even less than that. You can't afford, except most people can't afford, except for the cheapest, crappiest food, which is obviously the highly subsidized, processed food, which
and that
stores
certainly
fat
ain't a
in
box
the body.
of crab legs.
Right, and it stores fat in the body and causes diabetes and heart disease and all that other stuff. So, no, it's not the fact that poor people are eating too much or they're eating crab legs or they're eating fancy-ass food. He's an idiot. It's because, if anything, we need, more social services out there. We need to make sure that people have either public transportation or access to a grocery store in their own town, and making sure that they have enough food stamps to eat properly so that we have a well-nourished populace instead of a desperate, starving, poor populace that isn't going to do this country any good.
Yeah, now, one thing, too, is that you brought up a lot of the unhealthy food that people eat because it's unhealthy and it's cheap, right? So
right.
People will load up on the cheap shit just for empty calories so that they're not hungry. And
right.
so these people, yeah, you will see people get fat off that because it's nothing but fat.
Right.
Fat, empty calories, a lot of corn because we subsidize the shit out of corn.
A lot of refined sugar, which stores fat very, very much so in the body.
You see, a lot of people that I know that are on food stamps that I encounter, actually their biggest meal that the government would subsidize with the subsidized nutrition program seems to be McDonald's, mostly, primarily. The 99 cent and under meals, the 99 cent hamburgers. This is usually how they feed them and their offspring. It's mostly McDonald's.
Right.
It's cheap. It's empty calories.
It's cheap. You can get a Happy Meal for under $4, and that's usually how it is.
And even though it is technically cheaper in some areas to get, like I said before, to get all the separate ingredients, broccoli and pasta and fresh fruit and produce, even though in some areas that is technically cheaper to get all that stuff. I mean, that's what I do, get all the separate ingredients and make it all from scratch. But most people, especially poor people, who are either going to school and going to work or working 2 jobs or 3 jobs or don't have a car, they either don't have access or don't have time to do all that.
That's true.
You also, a lot of areas that are very isolated from society that have no industry, these are predominantly the places where people mostly are on food stamps.
Right. I want to go over
They don't even have public transportation around here. So if you don't have your own car, which if Paul Ryan had had his way would be a disqualifier for getting food stamps, then you are literally screwed. You don't have anything.
How are you supposed to get a job without a car, too?